The bottom-up insurgency also is in line with the top-down strategy, and this gets part of the evolution. We have been digitalizing our core, of which Mongo's been such an important part, and yet we've also been doing the way we're interacting, through all our stakeholders. And Mongo allowed us at an amazing pace to basically onboard very high-quality APIs to basically facilitate our integration with these clients and to be able to launch them on time.
Welcome to the podcast. That's the voice of Bernie Gracy, Chief Digital Officer at Agero. He joins us today with JP Dhabolt, Principal Software Architect at Agero. Agero's platform and services power the next generation of software-enabled driver safety services and technology. They're pushing the limits of big data to transform the entire driving experience. And today, Bernie and JP join us to talk about the stack that they've built, the results they're achieving, and how MongoDB played a part in that. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi there, I'm Brazel from MongoDB University. When creating applications, it's important your users have trust that their data is safe. By dedicating just 1 hour of your time to taking our 8300 Atlas Security course, you'll gain the skills necessary to ensure best-in-class security for your MongoDB Atlas deployments. Enroll and take the free online course at your convenience at university.mongodb.com.
You're listening to the MongoDB Podcast. MongoDB Podcast? Exploring the world of software development, data, and all things MongoDB. And now your hosts, Michael Lynn and Nick Raboy.
Bernie Gracy and JP Dhabolt, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Good. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, and of course, as always, we have Nick Raboy. How you doing, Nick?
I am doing great, Mike.
Fantastic. So we're talking with Bernie and JP today. They are from Agero, a partner of MongoDB, and we're going to talk a little bit about the architecture and the partnership and how Agero is using MongoDB in their architecture. So before we go there, Bernie, I wonder if you would start and give us a bit of background. Who are you and what do you do?
So, Bernie Gracy, I like to call myself the Chief Cook and Bottle Washer for Agero. My title is Chief Digital Officer, but I have my group spans a wide variety of roles. We have sales engineering on the front end of the engagement, a tremendous architecture team of which JP is a part of, numerous engineering squads that are basically helping to deliver our value, and a client implementation team that actually help onboard our clients onto our services. So a really broad portfolio. And a key focus of mine is how we are digitalizing our offerings. So we have a very crack team, very proud of what we've accomplished in 2020.
Terrific. And it sounds like, JP, you're part of that team. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is JP Dhabolt. I'm a Principal Software Architect here at Agero. I've been with Agero for coming up on 6 years now. Before that, I spent 15 years in the Marine Corps. And what I do is try to provide our teams the information, the tooling, essentially the paved road to help them move forward quickly with solutions, and basically try to give myself some of the same heartache that they get, so that I know the same sort of pains that they're going through.
Fantastic.
But let me add on top of that, what JP is a force multiplier. What JP and this architecture team is actually helping to develop the architectural frameworks and patterns and how to actually bring code to life that makes hundreds of engineers productive. So the impact that he's had has been tremendous.
Fantastic. And tell us about Agero. What is the industry that Agero is in?
Yeah, so Agero is the leader in white label driver assistance services. So think roadside assistance, accident management, connected vehicle service, and consumer affairs. We're like a multi-sided platform. On one side are the largest insurance companies and automotive companies. On the other side of our platform are thousands of independent towing, roadside assistance, repair, and other affiliated services. And we basically help customers who are in moments of pain 12 million times a year to be able to get back on the road safely.
Great. And how long have you been working with MongoDB?
JP?
So I think we started with MongoDB back in 2015,
Hmm.
early days. We were running our own replica sets on premise, actually, in virtual
Okay,
machines.
great. And so that was pre MongoDB Atlas. So you had MongoDB in your data centers. And can you tell me a little bit about, I guess this is for JP, how you're using MongoDB today?
Yeah, so MongoDB is used. We follow a very polyglot um, data store, and so we try to pick the best data store for the job. And primarily, we use MongoDB as our document store of choice, especially around serverless and microservice applications that we have.
Hmm. And was MongoDB brought in as part of a re-architecture, or was it added, piecemeal as you began to build out new applications?
So MongoDB was brought in, as Bernie likes to say, through a developer-led insurgency in the organization. So um,
Oh, I need to hear about this. So tell me more about this insurgency.
so basically, as we started to determine that we wanted to move away from the monolith, developers started migrating out into the cloud and into their own database of choice. And given that it was a developer led, and MongoDB is the one of the developer, probably the developer's choice of databases, so that was kind of a de facto decision that was made at that point.
Hmm.
But I think it's important to add that the bottom up insurgency also is in line with the top down strategy, and this gets part of the evolution. We had a monolith that had existed for quite some time. It's done its job, but it was a monolith, and it was a monolith that was primarily servicing one intake scheme, which was a telephone call, someone requesting roadside assistance, for help from a mobile phone or their home phone. But as our clients were digitally transforming and we were looking to digitally transform, having something so tightly tied to an agent experience did not make sense. Yet, there were a number of business rules and logic that we wanted to basically unlock the value so we could actually create multiple ways for interaction to drive an omni-channel interaction. So we knew we wanted to slay the monolith to basically break the back end into microservices and now into to serverless components where now we could basically operate at a whole new scale as well as omni-channel. So that was our top-down strategy. And meanwhile, the architecture team and the developers said, "Wait a minute, I now understand the goal. Here's how we want to do it." And
Mm,
hence that's where JP came in.
mm.
So, what was the process like transitioning from the monolith to the microservice and serverless approach? Was it seamless, or did you go through any kind of hurdles? Maybe shed some light onto that.
There were hurdles because it actually was a sort of a two-step process. We were a monolith in a data center, and we were also moving to the cloud. Right. So we made the determination that we're moving from the data center to the cloud. We have to be an extraordinarily highly available platform. We're an emergency services company, right? We're serving, 112 million drivers out there that may be calling us on a moment's notice. So recognizing what we were doing was a cloud transformation and an architectural transformation all at the same time. So there were core
Mm.
learnings. JP, what would you add?
Um, Basically, that as we migrated into MongoDB, we took some of the same practices that we'd had with shared databases, shared architecture. And because it's what we knew, that's how we started initially using MongoDB. So we had a lot of applications that were using the same replica sets. And we did definitely run into some hurdles there when it came to things like noisy neighbors, one
Mm.
application getting out of control that would impact other applications on the same database. So
Mm. So how has the industry, the changes that's happening in that industry affected you specifically? I can imagine there's quite a bit happening, especially now with the pandemic. How has that how have these events changed what you're doing?
Well, I would say in some ways, and this is why, again, I'm extraordinarily proud of my team. Obviously, the contact center, with all our digital interaction, um, is still a very important part of what we do. And because of our choice of moving to the cloud early and adopting Slack and other collaboration tools and creating Zoom rooms when we moved into our new headquarters, we got everyone home in a week. All our
Wow.
developers, all our contact center people, not a blip in service, and we're able to move on. So
Mm,
it really showed that we become a digital company in many fronts. And
mm.
as I said earlier, we've had a great year. We've integrated 2 acquisitions and continue to deliver value for our company. So that's the sort of the Agero story. But around us, our clients are continuing to innovate. So we have new insurtechs that are connected to our platform that are mobile only, per use based insurance companies that look at roadside as an adjacency. They're consuming our APIs to basically allow that to happen. We have auto OEMs, which are deploying more and more connected vehicles where, I drive a Jeep Wrangler, and I can connect ask for roadside right from my telematics screen, right? Just and interact there. Others are hitting the button in the compartment in their vehicle. And then obviously, so many people now have apps that are tied to the brands where they can now request our services via an app. And we've also launched our own mobile web app, all right? So that
Mm.
if you're calling in from a mobile phone, we recognize that. We ask your permission to send you a text message. It basically launches a lightweight application that provides certain audio nudges to help the customer identify the problem and where they're at in a completely self-service manner. So we have been digitalizing our core, of which Mongo's been such an important part, and yet we've also been doing the way we're interacting, through all our stakeholders.
So I'm curious, is Agero being used internationally, or is it just North America?
So there is more and more international. So our core Agero is international, but we've also gone quite public, and this is another critical transaction that we made. So as JP was talking about unlocking the value of our assets and moving to microservices and to serverless components, of which Mongo plays a part in our document data store, we also acquired a company in California, Swoop, which was a SaaS software company. And we've now basically married these microservices and serverless components with this SaaS platform, which has accelerated our digital transformation and has now allowed us to become a software company. And we're now taking all these lessons and capabilities, what we've done for Agero, and now we're offering these same services to other non-competing international companies, where for Agero, we have a contact center, we have our software, we have a network of these thousands of fabulous service providers. Well, other companies have a contact center and a network, but they need new software. Now they're leveraging our software. So stay tuned. It's a great story. I
Fantastic.
remember when the Washington Post was bought by Amazon, they thought, all right, we're going to re-platform. And what are they doing? They're also selling their platform to other newspapers. We're
Mm.
kind of doing the same thing.
So tell me a little bit about the data that you're hosting, whether it be for a white label or for a partner of yours. W- Is there PII involved, and what kind of concerns do you have around security?
So PII is obviously, to be able to provide our service, um, we have to be able. In fact, this is actually, I think, a great thing. One of the APIs, or Mongo, was critical,
Mm.
is our profile API. We have to determine coverage, right? So if you call up and you say, "Hey, look, I paid for this coverage through my insurance company, or I was granted coverage when I bought this car, an extended warranty," we have to know who you are, what you're driving, to determine how you're covered. Um, what we like to be able to do is to reach into our client systems to minimize the PII, and then they give us the yes, no, but there's some complex rules to determine that coverage. Others will give it to us in a load file, and then we'll be able to have that, to be able to do that determination, and we have to be able to save that. But JP, why don't you talk about profile search and how Mongo played a part in that?
Yeah, so the profile API that Bernie mentioned, we are reaching out to our clients in order to obtain customer profile information. I'm sure you can imagine it does contain quite a bit of PII, and
Mm.
that information does get stored in Mongo because we have to snapshot um, what a particular profile looked like at the time of service, and so we do have some field level encryption that we have implemented that gets stored into Mongo, and then Mongo itself being encrypted at rest and encrypted in transit helps us protect that PII data basically from the time that we ingest it until the time that we store it in the database.
Hmm. And how big are the databases? How much data are you storing?
So there's a number of different databases that we have, obviously, for different applications. And some of them are, fairly small, less than a gig, kind of used as scratch type data that's used just for the operation of a particular API, maintaining its internal state, et cetera. And then some of the databases we have are a few hundred gigs of data that we have that's transactional or log data that's being persisted.
Mm-hmm. So today you're leveraging, you've gone off-prem and you're leveraging MongoDB Atlas completely?
Yes, we are.
Oh, great. Can you talk a little bit about the DevOps lifecycle and the deployment model? Are you using infrastructure as code or any configuration management in addition to MongoDB Atlas?
Yes, so we at this point in time we're not utilizing the DevOps for the instantiation of the new databases. That's something that we definitely want to move into as far as our DevOps goes, because we do have a very strong DevOps culture here at Agero. But we do rely heavily on DevOps practices around the administration of Atlas itself, such as the security rules as far as who's allowed to ingress into the Atlas clusters. And so a lot of that is, stored in a Git repository and deployed via the Atlas API calls.
More on the continuous deployment processes, and see if you were using like tools like CloudFormation or Terraform and things like that.
Yeah, so we rely heavily on CloudFormation being an AWS shop,
Yeah.
but one of the things that as an architecture team we don't particularly like is the verbosity of CloudFormation templates. They can get pretty intense and pretty crazy, especially if you're handing it off to a development team and asking them to move forward with it. So we use the serverless.com framework as an abstraction on top of the CloudFormation because it provides plugin functionality. So we can write plugins that have security rules written as part of the plugin, and basically have a team do an npm install of a plugin and be able to deploy a microservice, deploy a Lambda function, deploy, you name the AWS resource.
And you said serverless.com. Is this the same thing as serverless framework?
It is a serverless framework. I say serverless.com because serverless is a very overloaded term. So
absolutely.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the business impact. So I'm just wondering what other areas of the business has the partnership with MongoDB impacted?
So I can speak from the business perspective. We've recently done an acquisition, and as part of that acquisition, we have had to onboard. It was an asset purchase, numerous clients into our portfolio. Some of these clients presented some very unique challenges in that, as I was speaking about our digitalization and the integration that's occurring, some of these clients were very integration heavy. And we needed to basically, for two of the clients, build out 15 new real-time APIs to them that we are heavily integrating. And these frameworks that basically JP has created and Mongo allowed us at an amazing pace to basically onboard very high quality APIs to basically facilitate our integration with these clients and to be able to launch them on time, which at the pace that we were operating, people are like, is this even possible? It is literally the combination of MongoDB, the frameworks and patterns that JP has just described, our DevOps frameworks, and now I would say our tremendously capable engineers that this has all basically unlocked the value. They could focus on the business problems and be able to deliver excellence. So it's really improved our velocity.
Okay, so in this new world, you're obviously using a different set of tools. Perhaps some of the developers that are in your world are comfortable with MongoDB, but many may not be. What are you doing to make sure that your developers and engineers are up to speed on this, on the new frameworks that you're using?
So I want to kind of pull back from something that JP talked about earlier, and we said, "Hey, we're doing microservices. Now we're doing everything in serverless." Think about 4 years ago, we were an on-prem .NET, dual data center company, and now we're a highly available, active in the cloud, highly available environment. We knew when we made that journey that L&D was a critical component, and it's not just a one-time effort; it's an always effort, especially with the degree of innovation, companies like Mongo are doing. And so we began the cloud journey with L&D, and it has never stopped. And when I introduced JP as a force multiplier earlier, it's not only in developing best-in-class architectural frameworks and best-in-class DevOps frameworks. It's literally about what can I do, meaning JP and the architecture team, to continually upskill and up level all of the capabilities that we need to do to deliver value to our clients. So I want to hand it to JP because he's been so central to our success in 2020 and that continued journey.
Thanks, Bernie. So, as we introduce new tooling, new frameworks, new technologies into the organization, the architecture team, we're usually the ones that are at the forefront of trying to break our nose by bashing our heads against the wall repeatedly, trying to figure out how these technologies integrate, because that's usually where the pain point is how you actually get how you get them integrated into an API and start producing some business value. So when we go through that pain and that process, one thing we do is we try to codify our learnings by producing libraries, by producing modules that other people can pull in and essentially get our learning for free. But the other thing that we try to do is put out training videos internally, host coding sessions with a number of developers that we record and publish internally in order to try to keep everybody's game up and provide our learnings across the organization.
Fantastic. So not only providing the playbook, the menu of tools and services available to them, but also ensuring that they understand how to use them. Fantastic.
And I would add my engineering leaders, when they look at 2020 and we talk about critical X factors for the success that we've had this year, they all look with the partnership with the architecture team, JP and his boss, Jeff Duran in particular, for what they did to basically allow them to deliver the impossible this year, which is what they did.
So I'm curious, was MongoDB the only alternative you looked at? I know there was a kind of a pull in this direction from your engineering team, but were there other options that you considered?
Yes, there were absolutely other options that we considered, and not only did we consider, but you may want to put your fingers in your ears. But there's other options that we use as well in our polyglot ecosystem. So
I guess the natural next question would be, why MongoDB? But it sounds like you're using quite a few.
Yeah. So one of the things we try to do is select the best in class for a particular solution. And MongoDB is the best in class when it comes to document data stores, especially when you start dealing with geographic data and data that requires not just a key value lookup, but that requires complex indexing and the ability to join multiple collections together. So,
in regards to it being a popular choice with your developers, I mean, did they happen to, as they were ramping up to get more familiar with MongoDB, did they by chance happen to touch upon our university platform at all? Or
yes, actually, we had quite a few of our developers have gone through MongoDB University and done some of the training.
So MongoDB Atlas, it's obviously a platform, but there are other tools and services available in there. Are you leveraging backend services through Realm?
So at this point, we are just consuming MongoDB Atlas itself. Although we are actually currently in the process of doing some investigations into using the Realm GraphQL layer that's on top of collections, because that is potentially a multiplier in providing, or a force multiplier in producing GraphQL servers on the data.
Yeah, greatly simplifying the entire API stack for sure. How about in the mobile space? Are you using anything? Do you have any mobile apps in your suite of apps that you develop?
Again, we're a white label company, and the mobile apps that companies interact with are the insurance companies and the OEM companies, and they're consuming our APIs.
So, I mean, during your digital transformation, I mean, have these insurance companies and the companies that use your white label product, have they experienced improvements in their overall experience during this process?
Yeah, in fact, one of the things we're excited about, as I said, also that we have sort of this a web app that we do in trying to transform a phone call. We're very pleased that our product managers that own those experiences have been advising our insurance clients and our automotive clients about what we believe is best practices with regards to the experience and helping to shape what those are on these iconic brands websites or mobile applications. So it's a source of great pride for us that we're almost like a test, as JP was saying, they're the test bed for the rest of the developers, or he bashes his head against the wall. In many ways, we're sort of like, as we've had to shift left in our digital transformation, our clients get the benefit of our learnings as well as they go through their own digital and mobile transformation.
Speaking of learnings, any recommendations for folks, traveling along the same path that you've gone? Any pitfalls that you would have liked to have avoided?
Yes. So, I alluded to earlier, when we first moved into using MongoDB, when we were still hosting it ourselves, we were using a single replica set for a number of applications, and the noisy neighbor problem that came out of that, where one application could impact other applications, was actually, I think, the direct result of us relying on defaults rather than necessarily understanding the MongoDB down through the stack. So
Mm-hmm.
default connection string values, I believe at the time, I don't know if they still are, were a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 100 per connection or per pool. And so
Mm-hmm.
what would happen as we moved first into the cloud and we started dealing with auto scaling applications, as an application auto scaled out, we would have 600 to 1,000 new connections trying to be established in the same millisecond, which is not great for compute on any database. So
Ill-advised.
yes, very much so. So keeping
Yeah.
keeping in mind, connection pooling, the settings for the drivers, and as you're moving between different applications. So what works for a monolith application where you have one thing that doesn't scale out and just maintains a giant pool of connections is not going to be the same as when you're dealing with a serverless application that only needs 1 to 3 connections open to the database and can scale out to thousands of concurrent invocations.
So definitely understand those default connection string settings. Anything else that you would recommend for developers that are beginning to look at digitalization and a shift to the cloud?
One, I would say MongoDB Atlas is probably the place where I would land first now, rather than trying to run it ourselves. Simply because of you no longer have the cost of operations, which is huge, especially when you have development or developer-led efforts, because developers are not necessarily the strongest in their operations backgrounds, and so not having to worry about managing servers is definitely a plus.
Yeah, this is actually a really important point. One of the things I always talk to the team about is core versus context, right? And what should we be focusing on? Because then we're a white label roadside assistance company, and you say, what are the set of skills and capabilities we need to do to provide service to our clients? And a cloud database as a service capability allows us to focus on value and allows you to kind of help manage those services underneath for us, so we can stay focused on the value. So to JP's point, it's a good use of capital for us and focus about where we can, how we create that value.
Yeah.
Microservices, are you all in when it comes to serverless, or are you using other technologies as well, like Docker and Kubernetes type scenarios?
So our focus is on providing the functionality, which for the most part for us works well in serverless. We do look at using Docker and Kubernetes, and we do incorporate them into some of our dev practices and everything else. But when it comes to actually deploying, our general rule of thumb is third-party hosted things that we need to run that don't have cloud offerings or as a service offerings will run in Kubernetes or Docker, but things that we're managing ourselves and building ourselves, serverless we're all in on the serverless.
Yeah, we were very early adopters. in serverless, and now that framework has been adopted widely within the team, and we believe it's given us a competitive advantage, not only in cost, but our ability to scale delivery.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like you're thought leaders in that space. So I'd like to ask you what's next? What's on the horizon, the roadmap for your platform?
So yeah, as I said, we not only are we leveraging and unlocking the value of the serverless components and other microservices that JP and my engineering team has done, but we're accelerating the marriage of those services with the company we bought in San Francisco, Swoop, as to accelerate digital transformation. So we're bringing more and more of our volume from our legacy platform onto Swoop. And Swoop, again, with its set of APIs and other capabilities, is allowing us to participate in other ecosystems where we're creating even more value for our clients. And our clients are also pushing us to be more digital, not only in the context of what we're doing in the US, but obviously what's happening in Europe. So it's a very, very exciting time for us. Very, very exciting time.
Well, I think we've covered it all. It's been a great conversation. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for spending some time with us. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we conclude?
I can't wait for 2020 to be over.
You and me both.
And I can't wait to get the shot.
Yes. Line me up. I'm ready.
Yeah. But thank you for the opportunity.
I really appreciate you spending time with us. Is there somewhere you would like to send folks if they want to find out more information?
Yeah, I'd say go to www.agero.com. Agero.
Fantastic. And then how about you, JP? Are you out there on the social media space?
You can find me out there. I'm not very active.
Okay.
So, but if you want to ping me, I'll probably respond.
Well, thanks again, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much to JP and to Bernie. Had a great discussion. If you want to learn more about the Agero platform, visit www.agero.com. That's Agero.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Have a question or a suggestion for the show? Visit us in the MongoDB community forums at community.mongodb.com.